Okay, so as I promised in the radiator video, here's a quick overview of how I'm doing my electrical system. If you have or have ever seen the schematics or just the engine bay of any Volvo Amazon, you know they have very little room for expansion as far as the fuse block goes. And actually, speaking of the fuse block, I'm going to show you guys the fuse block from the Amazon. And if you've ever had the misfortune, like I did, of having this little guy, the little 25 amp fuse, blow, you'll know that they're very hard to find. And when you do find them, like people like IPD and Swedish Treasures do carry them, but then you're paying $5–6 for the fuse, and then another $5–6 for shipping. That's kind of a lot for a fuse. So what I've done, let me switch to the other camera and I'll show you. Here you can see that the top fuse, this is still a 25 amp fuse, but it's the glass kind. Fits right in there, haven't had to do any modifications or anything. This, I believe, this part, if you don't have an overdrive on your car or air conditioning, this will be empty. I am using it since this is a switched power, meaning there's only current going across this if the car is on or the ignition key is set to the accessory position. I am using this to send voltage over here, and this is continuous duty 12 volt 100 amp relay. The original use for it is for boats and golf carts. So this thing can handle a lot of current, and basically what it does is when it sees 12 volts across these smaller poles, it closes the circuit. So this is, you know, my big honking 6-gauge cable that is coming from the positive terminal on the battery. And then on the other side of this, you have 3 cables that go to this fuse block, which is marked as switched, and the other one is marked as unswitched because the power for it comes directly from here, and this is just a terminal that I made. It's sitting on a Bakelite insulation block, and so this is ultimately connected via this big 6-gauge cable to the battery directly. So this, anything that needs common unswitched power and doesn't need a fuse, just goes here. So for example, the voltage reference for the internal regulator and the alternator is coming from here. My big relay getting power from here, and these 3 10-gauge cables are going to the unswitched fuse box, and what the arrow just points to is what the common terminal is, meaning everything on this side is connected together. So the 3 different cables providing power to it, all that's doing is enabling me to handle more current while using slightly more flexible cable, and that's why I have 3 of each coming in each way, just for current handling purposes. And so the unswitched fuse block, as the name says, it's not switched. It's, you know, it's hot all the time. The switched block is connected to that big relay, so it's only receiving power when the car is on or the ignition is turned to the accessory position. And these are just mounted on, you know, a steel plate which has a sheet of plastic behind it, just to serve as another extra insulating barrier. Just, you know, you're never too cautious when you're talking about car electrics. So basically that's it. That's how the expansion of the electrical system is handled in this project. Now, just to conclude, I know that I could have done this in ways that are a lot more elegant, or I don't know, just better, more optimal. But one of the things with me is that I am kind of impatient, and sometimes I'll come up with an idea and want to execute it right away. This was all done with off-the-shelf parts from, you know, auto parts stores and hardware store. So it's, you know, it was pretty cheap to build, handles everything fine, and all my gadgets that I'm installing then have proper current protection.